Hey everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia back with the latest installment of the Jungle Roar podcast, powered by our good friends at Prize Picks and All Good Home Improvements, and of course, CLNS Media. My pleasure to welcome back onto the pod this week, Kelsey Conway of the Cincinnati Enquirer does a spectacular job, of course, covering the Bengals and all things NFL related for the Cincinnati Enquirer and Cincinnati.com. Kelsey, how happy are you that football is finally back and we can talk about play on the field and interview players in the locker room about what they're doing on the field as opposed to just talking about contract talk?
When Joe Burrow talked for the first day, was it the first day of training camp? I think that was like the first real football story that I wrote that didn't have anything to do with the contract. So I'm thrilled to be able to be writing and talking more about what's going on with the Bengals. Obviously, there's still some contract stuff to get figured out with Trey, but that almost feels like, not the most important thing at camp right now.
I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelsey, but I think that gets done when it gets done. I think it will eventually get hammered out between the two sides. I don't think Trey wants to sit out a full season. And even if he did do that, of course, the Bengals would still retain his rights. I think somehow, some way, a deal is going to get worked out between the two sides before the season begins. Your thoughts on Shamar Stewart finally reporting to camp on Sunday and pretty much being thrown right into the fire?
Hallelujah. I mean,
amen.
We would have never in a million years thought on draft night that was going to happen. And what a loop that threw all of us, because you have to report on things like that. Like,
sure,
it almost feels like, I know to some people, you're writing about it all the time, you're talking about it all the time. But at the end of the day, those are important stories that really move the needle. And
no
so
question.
You have to talk about them all the time. And I was really impressed with Shamar, the way he handled things. And I really think that it's easy for people to get behind a keyboard and make up their opinions about someone before their career or, anything really gets started, right? Like, Shamar's story hasn't been told. So while I understand fans were upset at times and it seemed silly at times to people who didn't understand, he's worked his entire life for this moment, and you hope you get a second contract, but in the NFL, you just never know. So I think that people should be a little bit softer towards Shamar and what happened. He was trying to take care of his business. That's the most important thing. They were able to get it figured out. Sure. Would you have liked it to have been earlier? Would you have liked him to practice? Yes. But that was his stance. He felt like that was what's in his best interest. And at the end of the day, his desire to get on the field pulled through. The Bengals were able to come up with a little bit of a compromise that made him feel good about the situation. And look, yes, every practice is important. But had he missed this week with the full pads, and then you're going into next week with the first preseason game, then I'd be a little bit more worried and almost questioning what you could expect from him in his first season. But I truly think they're going to be able to get him up to speed fast enough. I don't think he'll play a ton in the first preseason game because they got to be smart with it. But I think he was here when it needed to be here with the pads, and I think that everybody should just take a deep breath and let him prove himself on the field before we write the Shamar Stewart story.
I think the Bengals handled the nuance of the situation pretty well, especially the players in the locker room, Ted Karras and Zach, of course, Zach Taylor, head coach, by not blaming Shamar, but saying, and Duke Tobin said this at Media Day as well, we have no problem with Shamar Stewart. It's trying to deal with the agent, and that's business. That's part of the business of the NFL. But my point here is that the Bengals were very careful, not as an incoming rookie, not to put all of the weight of this at Shamar's feet so he can focus on football once he got there. And that's one thing I've noticed this week. It's been a pretty smooth, seamless transition for him in terms of fitting into the locker room. I mean, we're not in there we're only in there during media availability, but it seems like he's been pretty well accepted, Kelsey.
Right. And I feel like, I mean, he said it, there were players telling him he was doing the right thing. The guys in the locker room will always respect players for doing what they need to do to take care of their business. And it's one of those things where unless you're in the locker room, you don't really know what goes on behind the scenes, but they had his back. And I know that they're all excited. Amarius Mims talked about, how excited he would be when he got back. And I know that they're becoming close friends. So, it did feel like that when we left work yesterday, that although there was so much drama going on with Shamar and Trey and, all of the things leading up to camp, I mean, fingers crossed for no major injuries to key starters, it kind of just feels normal at camp right now. And it's kind of nice.
Yeah. To quote Kelsey Conway, can I get a hallelujah? I mean, they need that, Kelsey. After the last 2 years with all of the
circus.
Cue the circus music, and we have that queued up in the press box for all of those silly moments in Bengal games over the last 2 years and frustrating moments for Bengal fans. They need a kind of chill, normal, if you can, normal in quotation marks, training camp, preseason, get into the regular season, and finally get off to a good start. By the way, Shamar, I thought, had a couple of nice pass breakups on Monday when the practice moved indoors. And I think that's a good – he has built himself a good foundation. Let's move on to a story you have up on Cincinnati.com and the Cincinnati Enquirer. You talked to Chuck Burks, and you went pretty in-depth, I thought, Kelsey, about the secondary. And the title of the story, Bengals counting on a youthful energy from secondary to carry defense this season. Why do you think the secondary holds the key to this defense this year?
Because of the amount of players the team has invested in that position in the last couple of drafts. It is so fascinating to me to go into this season with so many questions about key starters. We're not just talking about one or two players. We are talking about across the board, the corners, the safeties, all but one, Geno Stone. Those are your draft picks, and they've been drafted in either rounds 1, 2, 3, or 5 with Newton. So I talked to cornerbacks coach Chuck Burks yesterday with a couple of other reporters, and it felt like at practice, since we don't usually get to be that close to the team when they moved inside because of the rain, we could hear more than we usually would. And I just kept making mental notes of just like the energy the DBs had when they would make a good play. There's like running, jumping on each other on the sidelines. And I was like, I know I haven't seen it this up close in a little bit, but like they seem like a different group this year. And it's not a slight to last year's group, but it almost just feels like an inflection of like new energy and just like fun. And of course it's easy to have fun, right? They're not playing games right now. But I asked Chuck Burks about it, and I was like, am I, overhyping this? And he was like, no, we've made it a point, because the average age of the Bengals secondary, so that's the corners and the safeties, is 24 and a half years old. They don't have a Mike Hilton. They don't have a Cheeto Awuzie. They don't have an Eli Apple. They don't have that veteran guy. It is all young guys. The oldest player of the starters is Geno Stone at 26.
Right.
And so what they're hoping for, and time will tell if it works out, that this energy that they have from all the young guys can be a positive for them and kind of what they hang their hat on, and just being like energetic, on like going all the time, 100%. And so Chuck Burks said, if you don't have the age, you have to make up for it with energy. And I had a really good conversation with Geno Stone about it, because when he was in Baltimore, he played in secondaries where there was a lot of older players, but now he's in Cincinnati with a lot of younger players. And he was like, each group has its advantage. He's like, it's just a matter of like what you do with it. And I thought what he said specific to him, because I know he's a polarizing player in that there's a lot of people that feel he shouldn't still be the starter. You could argue, should he or should he not be? He said to me that he's having fun again. And he said the way that Al has set up this defense and the fact that he's been here for a year, he said it brought the joy back in the game for me. And if that's the oldest player in your group and he's having that much fun, I feel like it just filters down.
I'll give you a player that I've noticed who has been much more vocal this year, and he's on the second team. And I think he could wind up, by the time all things are said and done, having an impact in that secondary is Dejon Anthony. We know his story from last year. We know he was half a click to a click late with the pass interference penalty at the end of the Kansas City game that cost them the game on 4th and 15. But if that play goes just a little differently, I think we're having a different conversation. And I've seen Dejon Anthony come in and be very vocal, talk to Tyson Anderson, talk to other guys on that second unit secondary defense that's been in there against the likes of Jake Browning and the second team offense. It just, I don't know if it means anything, Kelsey, but he has definitely taken on more of a vocal role this year.
Well, you would hope. And I mean, if he's the third safety, he's going to have to. So if anything happens to Jordan or Geno, they haven't went out and signed anyone, so they would be relying on Dejon. So that's what you hope to see from him. I know last year they wanted to see some maturity from him throughout the season. And sometimes it just takes guys a year to kind of figure out their way in the NFL. And so that's good that you've noticed that progress from him.
Speaking with Kelsey Conway, covering the Cincinnati Bengals for Cincinnati Enquirer and Cincinnati.com. Want to tell you about Prize Picks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And on Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much, much more. Prize Picks, by the way, invented Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup is not perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And remember, every Friday is Flex Friday. Make sure you opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for protected play. Choose squares from any game on the board, and if your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Back with Kelsey Conway of the Cincinnati Enquirer. And before we go any further, and lest I forget, we have to get to a story that broke last Thursday during the Ja'Marr Chase press conference, and it had to do with my wardrobe. And I want to thank the person that I am talking to for amplifying the story by asking Ja'Marr Chase, because I was wearing a banana shirt. I think everybody has seen the viral clip by now. I was wearing a silly banana bucket hat that I got with the lovely Deborah Ann over in Europe when we were on vacation a couple of weeks ago. But I wore the combo, and I asked a question of Ja'Marr. I don't even remember what the question was, Kelsey. And he stops me cold and says, wait a minute. What are you wearing? I'm paraphrasing. What are you wearing? You got a lot of bananas going on. Do you like bananas? And then Kelsey Conway of the Cincinnati Enquirer pipes up and says, Kelsey?
Ask him where he got it from.
Yes. And Ja'Marr looks at me and I said, do you really want to know? And he said, yeah, I want to know. And I said, well, a grocery store, Kroger to be exact. And he just lost it. And then Jeff Hobson, to follow up the story, also deserves some credit here in telling Ja'Marr, I bet you didn't know people actually shop at Kroger. And then Ja'Marr really lost it. I love that story, not because it involved me, but because we saw a side of Ja'Marr. It's so genuine, Kelsey. And It is part of the fun of covering football. It's part of the fun of what we do for a living. And thank you, Kelsey, for bringing out the personality in both of us. Just want to
well,
get that
thank
out
you
there.
for wearing the banana shirt and the banana hat. We all needed that laugh on the second
Oh,
day.
did we?
We need laughs during training camp. They're hard to come by because we're tired, hot. So it was a good day for all of us.
It was indeed. As we move back to the actual business of football, Kelsey, that people want to hear us talk about, on the offensive side of the ball, somebody that I think is going to get a lot of attention and has already and has become a so-called focal point of the offense is Chase Brown. What are your impressions of Chase Brown so far, not just in the first couple of days of camp practice, but in the offseason, and what the coaching staff, namely Dan Pitcher and Zach Taylor, have had to say about him?
I'd buy stock in Chase Brown for all of my fantasy football playing friends out there. He is, and obviously you have to, keep in mind it's just training camp practice. Nobody can tackle.
Right.
There's a lot going on. He like catches your eye. He'll be watching and you can't help but just like follow him, because when he makes one cut, like he's so explosive. And I mean, he has the makings to be just an exceptional offensive threat, not just a running back. I'm talking about being able to catch the ball out of the backfield, like a little weapon for Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher, like you've seen kind of the evolution of these running backs that turn into receivers that can do all of these different things. And it feels like that is the Bengals kind of jack of all trades. And I was not thrilled with the Bengals' decision to run it back with that running back room last year at this time. I thought that running back room has needed a revamp for a while. You could say that with, that would be probably like my biggest criticism of last year is I think they held on to too many guys a year too long, and that's what Duke Tobin said. But specifically the running back room, like I think you need to like infuse that room with new players every year, just so you can see what you have, especially at the second or third back. So I really like the Taj Brooks, Chase Brown,
as do
that we've seen.
Yes.
Just the different styles, because the Bengals need a Chase Brown, but they also need a tough back that's strong and physical. And I think the balance of those two could be really good for the Bengals, and they've got to fix the short yardage game. It's been not good enough the last couple of years, and it's cost them games by not being able to just, get a 4th and 1 or, cash in when they need it. So I think that the evolution of that is going to be something I'm really interested to watch this year. Chase has been really impressive. So is Taj Brooks in training camp so far. But the story about Chase Brown is going to be, can he stay healthy? And I think if he is able to stay healthy, I will say, I know it's really important to him. He takes really good care of his body. So typically when you spend the amount of time and money that he is, you hope that it works out, because it's a big deal for him to be on the field. But I've been really impressed with him, and he's going to be a fun player, I think, for the Bengals this year.
Speaking with Kelsey Conway of the Cincinnati Enquirer. Want to tell you about All Good Home Improvement. All Good has been helping homeowners for 32 years. When looking for a home improvement company, the number one quality they are looking for is trust. For the last 32 years, All Good has been trusted to help homeowners replace their windows, install new vinyl siding, install new gutters, and as we just had our home improved a couple of months ago, professionally install a new roof. All Good offers interest-free financing with payment starting at just $99 a month and no money down. All of All Good's home improvement products are professionally installed and backed by both a material and labor warranty. And right now, All Good offering a 50% off sale or buy one, get one free. For more details and to schedule a free in-home consultation, simply call 513-247-2900. That's 513-247-2900 for a free in-home consultation, or you can always go to their website, myallgoodhome.com. Back with Kelsey Conway. We're wrapping it up here on this latest episode of the Jungle Roar podcast. And Kelsey, how much are you looking forward to the preseason games and actually seeing the starters play, starting with the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles August 7th?
Yeah, I'm less worried about that. Like, I don't think the Eagles are going to be playing a lot of people. Because if you remember when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, Zach moved the offseason back a month because, like, it's just a lot of wear and tear on the body in the 1 year. So I don't know Nick Sirianni's philosophy when it comes to playing starters in the preseason. No, right. But I'm more focused on the Bengals and Joe Burrow and this offense. How long is that going to play them? Is it going to be one drive? Or is it going to be a quarter? Or is it going to be a half? Like Patrick Mahomes plays a half in Kansas City. Does Zach feel more comfortable doing one full quarter in one game and then play him another quarter on the Monday night game in DC? I'm fascinated to see how much he's going to play. I will be disappointed if it's like just 2 series because they've been hyping this up that this is going to be really beneficial. And in my opinion, it needs to be like at least a quarter or, half would be amazing. But I know that you also very much have to weigh like the health of the players. So I'm not sure what that right mix is, but a series isn't enough. So to me, it's going to have to be like a quarter, I think, or a quarter. I feel like if Joe could play in a quarter in each game, maybe that could be the right mix for him. But I mean, time will tell. But I'm looking forward to seeing that. Typically, preseason games, are kind of just like, eh. But because the starters are going to be playing more, it's going to be fun for us to watch and evaluate.
The key to getting off to a better start this year is what, in your estimation? If you're Kelsey Conway, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, and you're evaluating how this team can get off to a fast start, because everybody and their brother has been saying they need to win the first 2 games. They need to win they need to get off to a better start. What do you think the key is to doing that?
I think it's these next 2 weeks, how they practice, because you can't tackle. So obviously the tackling isn't going to be what it needs to be in week 1 and week 2. And it's easy to say what you need to see is Joe Burrow playing well. But I think it's just a mentality thing for the team. Like, Ted Karras said something to me. He was like, we own that. Like, we own our issues in the month of September. So he says that. So what are you going to do about it? You're going to come out, ready to play bully ball? Like, what is going to be the identity of this team? And in my opinion, it starts with how these kind of next couple of weeks go, because they need to get the work done that they need in a controlled environment here so that they're ready to go. Because this whole loosey-goosey style of training camp heading into week 1 hasn't worked. And so I'm eager to see how these next 2 weeks go in terms of the players like putting their foot on the gas pedal.
I want to see the team tackle better. I mean, to me, 90% of their defensive problems last couple of years, and many players, including Logan Wilson on Monday, told me this. We just haven't been in position to tackle properly. I mean, and Zach said this on Monday. It's not necessarily about being physical in practice and tackling and thumping and bringing guys to the ground. It's 2 things. It's getting yourself in the proper space to be prepared to make the tackle and playing with the proper leverage, knowing if you have help or you don't. And if you get those 2 things straight and you emphasize them, which it sounds like Al Golden and the defensive coaches have been doing that, not only in the first week of camp, but well before that in OTAs and minicamp. If you get that down straight, I think they'll tackle better. And if they tackle better, they'll get the offense off the field and get Joe Burrow onto the field much better. That would be my guess, my estimation.
Totally.
Anything you're working on, Kelsey, that we should be keeping an eye on for? Just
your daily coverage of the Bengals over on Cincinnati.com. So be sure to check it out.
And be sure to check out Kelsey's podcast, The Bengals Beat, on Cincinnati.com and Cincinnati Enquirer. She does a fabulous job weekly with that. covers all things Cincinnati Bengals. Kelsey, it has been a pleasure having you back on the Jungle Roar podcast. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me on Trags.
We'll see you soon down at Paycor. All right, she is Kelsey Conway. My name is Mike Petralia, Trags. And I want to thank our sponsors, of course, Prize Picks and All Good Home Improvement, and our friends at CLNS Media. Until next time, keep that jungle roaring.